Hello, I'm Riz Khan. Triumph seems like a remarkable word to describe a week in which Donald Trump was hit by a would-be assassin's bullet. But images of his fist-pumping defiance and ecstatic crowds greeting his arrival at the Republican National Convention reflect a presidential candidate who's experiencing what could be a decisive surge in popularity. As Republicans and Democrats blamed each other for sowing the seeds of political violence through highly charged rhetoric, there were also calls on both sides for a change in tone, for unity and conciliation to replace enmity and intolerance. On this episode, we'll hear from prominent Trump supporters and critics, and in a week where the former president's legal team celebrated another landmark victory, we'll consider the prospect of an all-powerful president enjoying immunity from prosecution. My first guest is an author, host of the America First national radio show, and was deputy assistant to President Donald Trump. Sebastian Gorka joins us from Milwaukee, where he's attending the Republican National Convention. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
Now, from Saturday's tragic shooting to the dismissal of a major legal case against Mr. Trump to his pick for vice president, Donald Trump has been dominating the headlines across the world this week. There's so much to talk about, but let's start with the events at the rally in Pennsylvania. Now, with a few days having passed to allow time for reflection, what are your thoughts on what happened?
Well, as I wrote in a piece that went viral on my Substack, this was absolutely expected. Anybody who says this is a shock and they're surprised is either a moron or been asleep for the last 9 years. My former boss has been calumniated, has been libeled, has been called a Nazi, literally a Nazi, has been called a white supremacist, a bigot. Recently, The Atlantic magazine, as well with another utter gutter press rag, had President Trump portrayed as Hitler on the cover of the magazine. So if you call the leader of the opposition Hitler, a dictator, and a threat to democracy, it was inevitable that somebody would pick up a gun and try to assassinate him. The left has normalized this reckless language and is fine with violence.
Well, so considering what you're saying, there's been widespread anger at apparent lapses in security, but some conspiracy theories emerged suggesting the failure to adequately protect the former president was deliberate. Now, do you consider such ideas to be credible?
No, I detest conspiracy theories, and there's a reason why they're called theories, because they're not facts. I broke down in a video on Sunday morning how this was an absolute catastrophic, a tectonically catastrophic failure for the Secret Service. The Democrat Party may have engendered the use of violence against President Trump, but the fact that they didn't secure a building with line of sight 150 yards from the principal, from the president, the fact that they didn't actually shield his body, they had corpulent, short female agents who couldn't physically even shield the president's body, they were so short, and they kept him in the kill box for almost a minute instead of whisking him away like the real Secret Service did in 1983 when Ronald Reagan was almost killed. Means that this organization, whose director has been AWOL since the assault, since the assassination plot, this organization is not fit for purpose.
I'll leave the Secret Service to handle your comments on their various staff. But Mr. Gorka, as someone who knows Donald Trump well, what did you think of the way the former president conducted himself in the immediate aftermath of the attack? He was buried beneath a huddle of Secret Service agents searching for his shoes, and then had the presence of mind to emerge with a fist pump beneath the American flag to create perhaps one of the most iconic and powerful images of our age.
Well, it is. That's exactly the phrase I used, presence of mind. He's 25 years older than me. I served in the British Territorial Army. He did not have any military service. He went to a military high school, that's it. But I'm sorry, I would not have the presence of mind he did. He's almost 80 years old. He's shot with a high caliber weapon, realizes instantly, sees the blood on his hand, takes cover beneath the podium, and then the Secret Service, who are meant to shield him and cover him from sight, he says, "Get out of my way," raises his fist, says, "Fight, fight, fight," to send a message to everyone not to cower, and they didn't. Watch the incredible footage. Nobody panicked. They sat back down and waited for him to be whisked away. It's mythic. It's like Ajax, or it's like Odysseus. We haven't seen the likes of this in modern politics. It makes Teddy Roosevelt being shot and finishing his speech look like an amateur. I mean, look, I know the man. I worked for the man, where we were the two of us alone in the Oval Office on more than one occasion. I still don't understand it. There's some level of courage that is burnt into every element of DNA of his genes that is just mind-boggling.
Well, as you would expect, there's a lot of interpretation of what happened and what he said. Now, what do you think Donald Trump meant when he urged his supporters to fight, fight, fight after that shooting? It's been taken up as a rallying call, of course, at the convention this week. But is there some danger some people might interpret it as a call for a violent response?
I'm not really going to respond to that kind of criticism because it's insane. They just tried to assassinate him. They just tried to kill him. He said, "We never give up. We never give in. It's the American way." The fact that we have the left and the mainstream legacy lying media haven't apologized for calling him Hitler, for saying that he's a quote, threat to democracy for the last 6 months. If the American people decide to re-elect him, they say that's a threat to democracy. And now they're trying to blame him for being assassinated. I'd like to move on.
Now, critics, of course, would argue they're justified in using such language and reflecting Donald Trump's own statements. They say they consider him to be a general threat to democracy.
Yeah, the same people that have attempted to put him in prison have imprisoned my colleagues from the White House, Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. Let me be very clear here there is a threat to democracy. It isn't putative and it isn't theoretical. It exists right now. The Biden administration, which is imprisoning 73-year-old grandmothers for praying at a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic, strip searching Peter Navarro in the same cell they held Hinckley in because he had a contempt of Congress charge put against him, something that has never resulted in the modern age with somebody being put in prison. Steve Bannon, the president's former campaign manager, right now in a federal prison. We have a police state and it has arrived 5 days before the Butler rally. We have the current incumbent who, yes, is not compos mentis, but he's not senile enough not to say, let's put a bullseye on Trump's back. Now that's the police state.
How do you think what you're describing as a police state would change under a second term with Donald Trump?
Well, we would have to excise all the corruption from within the government. We used to use the phrase deep state. It's not a deep state anymore. It's an in-your-face, screw-you state. When you send armed agents of the FBI to the residence of the former president, to raid his home, to go through his wife's wardrobe, to order his attorneys to stand outside on the lawn so they can't witness what they're planting. And now we know the FBI did bring materials to plant inside the president's home, those classification cover sheets, and then spread them out over the floor and took photographs and leaked them to the Washington Post. That can never be allowed to happen again. So there has to be a clean sweep of the Department of Justice. I believe, and this saddens me because I've trained literally thousands of their agents and intelligence analysts, the FBI is unsalvageable and has to be dismantled, and its 3 core missions given to other agencies. And likewise, we have to get the unconstitutional actors out of the CIA, the NSA, and anywhere else they may be, including the IRS, which, as we know, was used by Obama to target patriots as well.
Now, of course, there are strong perspectives on both sides, strong opinions. On this episode, I'll be speaking with Reed Gallen, who's a co-founder of the Lincoln Project, which is dedicated to preventing Donald Trump's return to power. Rick Wilson, his co-founder, is known for outspoken comments about the former president. But after the shooting, he received death threats against his children. Now, what would you say to both him and to Reed Gallen?
Well, having been a subject of death threats, my whole family, when I served in the White House and afterwards, that's absolutely inexcusable. But let's remember what Rick Wilson said, which I will be playing on my national radio show this morning. He said on cable television that a bullet needs to be put into Donald Trump. Ask him about that. A bullet a bullet, not figurative. He said a bullet needs to be put into Donald Trump. Maybe his connections to Butler need to be investigated.
That, of course, is a question for Reed Gallen, too, so we'll get that response. Now, you've had guests on your show who speak about the Democrats in similarly provocative terms. Now, on your podcast, America First, you recently referred to Democrats as being godless and people who hate America. Isn't there an element of hypocrisy there?
No, I'm absolutely convinced the only dividing line in America today is not a political one. I actually said the taxonomy of Republican versus Democrat is no longer relevant. It's not even conservative versus liberal. There's one dividing line between those who love America, like President Trump and his America First supporters, and those who hate it, like Biden and anyone who voted for him. Let's answer one very simple rhetorical question. If you were planning to destroy America, what would you do differently from what Biden has done for the last 3.5 years?
Let me
Nothing,
ask you,
really.
I was going to say...
Let me just finish.
Yeah.
You'd open the borders. You'd allow tens of millions of illegals into the country. You'd have DEI suffused throughout the government, including the military. You'd give literally billions of dollars to the anti-American Islamo-fascist regime in Iran, on and on and on. So no, I will repeat what you just quoted of me. There are two types of Americans today: those who love America and wish to save it, and those who detest it and are dismantling it or trying to dismantle it.
My question to you was going to be, well, if they are trying to dismantle it and they hate America, as you described, what do you think they envisage as the final outcome of their mission then? How would America look?
America on its knees. You have to look at the 1619 project. You have to look at the phrase Steve Bannon uses of the managed decline by the Uniparty. They think America is the problem. I mean, what kind of person says, as Hannah Nicole Jones, the so-called historian behind the 1619 project, what kind of person says my country is endemically racist? In the genes, it is endemically racist. What kind of person says that? Only a person who hates their country. Their end state is to bring America to its knees because they are projecting from inside themselves. They hate themselves. They deny the existence of God. And so they project the hatred of themselves onto the other, which is, of course, MAGA. This is why you have the current incumbent in the White House bathed in demonic red light, flanked by Marines in their dress uniforms, standing outside one of the most important buildings in America, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, calling half the nation who voted for President Trump fascists, threats to democracy. Half the nation, dehumanizing 70 million Americans. Those people hate America, and that's why we, the patriots, must be victorious on November the 5th.
Now, you talk about the two sides, those who hate and those who love America. Following the assassination attempt, there have been calls for a new spirit of unity and conciliation in American politics. Would you share that spirit at all?
Well, I would like to see it from the left. There are even friends of mine in the conservative sphere who've said, oh, it's time to come together and to bring the temperature down. We didn't bring the temperature up. We didn't say put a bullseye on Biden's back. We didn't raise money for arsonists like Kamala Harris did. Think about that. The vice president of the United States raised bail money for Black Lives Matter arsonists. Nobody has done anything of the sort on our side. So if anybody has to come to the middle, it's the radical left. It's not us. We didn't try to kill Joe Biden. They did. So if there is any, and remember this peculiar hypocrisy of Joe Biden, who on his inauguration talked about being the great unifier. I will bring Americans back together, as he literally labels half of them extremists and a threat to democracy from outside Independence Hall in Philadelphia. It's truly stunning. The level of hypocrisy and gaslighting I've never seen. I'm 53 years old. I have never seen the likes of it before.
And was it fair to call Kamala Harris? You talked about, the people who have, racist views and so on, but to call her a DEI hire, which for those who don't know is that diversity and inclusivity, the diversity, equity and inclusion kind of hire.
Well, you tell me, Riz. Tell me how a woman who couldn't even garner 3% of the Democrat vote. Not the American vote, the Democrat vote in the primary. Why was she hired if she couldn't get 3% of the Democrats to vote for her, except because of her skin color and her gender? Yeah, anybody who's got, at least a triple-digit IQ knows that she is a DEI diversity hire.
Well, I guess we're very clear on your perspective there. Now, can I ask you, are we seeing the emergence of a new Donald Trump? Since the debate with President Biden, he seemed relatively restrained, and it's been suggested he's behind some less conservative policies in the 2024 Republican platform. He's building bridges with former primary opponents, including Nikki Haley. What chance is there that Donald Trump might emerge as a unity candidate, both within his party and in the country at large?
Look, the platform is superb. There's nothing not conservative in the platform that was released last week. It's absolutely superb. His tenor on the first night of the convention was somber, was not as bombastic as usual, which is absolutely natural for a man who was almost murdered less than 48 hours prior to the opening of the convention. Is he a unity candidate? I'll just say what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And you can go to my Twitter feed, Seb Gorka. And I keep reposting these named individuals who are saying, I'm a lifelong Democrat. I've always voted Democrat. I'm voting for President Trump. I don't recognize my party anymore. So I don't think he needs to do anything. I think the independents, the Democrats who realize their party has become an anti-Semitic, America-hating party, will come towards President Trump, and that his figures with the minority vote are stunning. 90% of Black America always votes for the Democrats. Now we're seeing 30+% want to vote for President Trump, and any poll, and I mean any poll you look at, now has the majority of Hispanics voting for President Trump. So he's already the unity candidate.
Now, what does Donald Trump's pick for vice president say about the former president? And what does J.D. Vance actually bring to the ticket, in your opinion?
Two big things, in my opinion. A younger demographic, if you look at his age. And secondly, also, the biggest question that, look, I'll be brutally honest. A vice president goes to the funerals the president doesn't want to go to. He's an appendage. They don't really do anything. He's not like a real cabinet member. I would like JD to be given an actual portfolio so he could do something. But the most important aspect of the vice president, and this is, I think, why the president chose JD, is what happens in 28. We have to have a vice president take on the mantle of America First and MAGA. And to be brutally honest, he is the most, and his road to Canossa conversion is so credible, from being an anti-Trumper who wrote this seminal work, Hillbilly Elegy, that really explained why President Trump was elected by so many working class Americans who'd been betrayed by the Republican Party and the Democrats. His conversion from anti-Trump to the most pro-Trump senator just put him in such good stead to be, the face of America First come 2028. Can
he live down those comparisons where he called Donald Trump America's Hitler?
Well, he apologized. He's a man who knows when he's made a mistake, which is fabulous.
With so much disarray in the Democratic Party in recent weeks and calls for President Biden to step down, you know Donald Trump well. If he could also pick his opponent in the presidential race, who would it be?
I think he's made that clear, as have I on my show. We want to run against Joe Biden. Joe Biden has to be made responsible for the destruction he has wrought inside America and around the world. There's a very good reason that for the 4 years we were in the White House, there were no new wars in the world. The globe was stable. As soon as we left, what happened? The absolutely unconscionable, inexcusable surrender of Afghanistan. Then, of course, Vladimir Putin decides, well, America's not leading, Joe's senile, I'm going to invade Ukraine. And then the greatest loss of Jewish life since the end of the Shoah, of the Holocaust, with the massacre of innocents on October the 7th. So, that's the track record that Joe Biden has internationally. And then domestically, it's a disaster. The only developed nation in the world with no borders, with inflation at record levels, the cost of petrol, gasoline, oil at record levels, on and on and on. So it doesn't matter. President Trump could defeat anybody, but we'd prefer. No, there's only one person I personally would like to be facing instead of Joe Biden, and she wants it so very, very much, and that's Hillary Clinton, because I would so love and find it delicious to have my former boss completely eviscerate her and destroy her politically in a second election.
Well, earlier this week, I spoke to an eyewitness who was on the front row at the rally in Butler when the former president was shot. Now, she told me that everyone around her considered it to be the event which just got Trump elected. Now, how much do you think we'll look back at this moment as the week in which the presidential race was actually won?
I don't like making statements like that. I don't like to tempt fate. We have 4 months to go. That is a lifetime in politics. I think it is a wake-up call, a giant red pilling, as they say, for millions of Americans. But as a former Green Beret said to me 2 weeks ago, when it comes to this election, we have to fight politically. We have to fight like the third monkey trying to get onto Noah's Ark. And that's what I'm going to stick to for the next 4 months.
Well, Sebastian Gorka, we have lots to discuss and lots to watch in the coming months. I hope we get to speak again.
Most kind of you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.